Sir, you clarified to us here and many times कि आप historian नहीं हैं, anthropologist नहीं हैं, आप storyteller हैं, right? Sir, इसमें आपकी जो last कुछ books आई हैं, we have seen that scholarly researchers के लिए you put some questions कि कैसे Vedic mythology में similarities हैं, Zoroastrianism में, rather you have also mentioned that Christianity might have evolved as a reaction to Buddhism. There are some similarities in Vedic religion and Zoroastrianism in terms of fire एक element होता है जो कि human और God को connect करता है, which Parsi believes, and even we have like the entire Veda talking about fire. Then महाभारत में पारसिका का mention है जो आपने बताया book में. तो सर ये सारे जो questions आप scholars के लिए रेस करते हैं, would you share those nugget of wisdom with our audience that और क्या similarities आपको दिखी?
अब देखिए ना शानू, प्रॉब्लम ये है कि हमने अपने खुद के इतने कंपार्टमेंट्स खड़े कर लिए हैं, दीवारें खड़ी कर ली हैं कि we are not willing to think outside that compartment. So for example, when I was writing the Rozabal Line, Rozabal Line was talking about the possibility of, in order to tell that story, I needed to go back to ancient Judaism. Now, if you consider what is the starting point of Judaism and what we consider to be the Abrahamic faiths, whether it is Judaism, whether it is Christianity, whether it is Islam, all these have come from Abraham. पर मैं अपने कागज पे लिख रहा हूं Abraham, और फिर उसके बाद मैं उसका जो ए है मैं निकाल लेता हूं फ्रंट में से और उसको एंड में डाल देता हूं. अब क्या बनता है? ब्रह्मा. Abraham becomes Brahma. Okay, so I think that maybe Ashwin Sanghi, maybe तुमने कुछ एक्स्ट्रा विस्की टिका ली है तो तुम कुछ ऐसी चीजें देख रहे हो. So then I'm looking at Brahma and Abraham. And then I realize that when I go into the Old Testament, Abraham has a wife called Sarah. And Brahma ji's consort is Saraswati. तो इसमें भी मैंने विस्की टिका रखी है. I mean, so somewhere there must be some reality which scholars have not looked at. Then I'm looking at within our own faith, our own Sanatan Dharma, the Trinities, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali. तो अगर आप श्री यंत्र देखें तो उसमें 9 ट्रायंगल्स हैं जो ओवरलैप करते हैं. इट इज एक्चुअली द मीटिंग पॉइंट ऑफ शिवा एंड शक्ति. तो मैं सिर्फ 2 ट्रायंगल्स लेता हूं. एक ट्रायंगल विच इज पॉइंटिंग अपवर्ड्स, दैट रिप्रेजेंट्स द मेल, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. एक triangle which is pointing down, which represents the female energy, Shakti. So, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali. अब आप उन दोनों को एक के ऊपर एक डाल दीजिए तो क्या सिंबल मिलेगा? It is a 6-pointed star. Where else do you see the 6-pointed star? In Judaism. So now how did it go? Or did it come? I'm not saying it went or it came. I'm saying that there is a connection. Similarly, there is, one is like, for example, when I'm looking at that 6-pointed star, side by side, I am looking at a sketch done in the 15th century by an English lieutenant who is stationed somewhere in Afghanistan. And what is that sketch? It is the sketch of a tomb. It is a Muslim tomb. And if you look at that tomb, it has 2 doors. And on those 2 doors, there are 6-pointed stars. So I am wondering कि अब इस्लाम के साथ क्या कनेक्शन है यहाँ पर? अगर ये मुसलमान टूम है तो कहां से ये 6-pointed stars आ गए? अब आप उसमें ज्यादा डिग कीजिए, वो किसका टूम है? That is the tomb of Muhammad Ghazni. And what are those doors? Those doors are the doors of Somnath, the sandalwood doors of Somnath, which were taken by Muhammad Ghazni to Ghazni, and where he instructed that मेरे मकबरा जो है उसके जो दरवाजे हैं, you put these doors. That is the reason we see that 6-pointed star there. So the point I'm making is that you will always find connections if you look closely enough. But we are not looking. You take, for example, magicians of Mazda. जब ये जो Zoroastrians हैं, वो भाग के ईरान से निकले, that sometime around 720 AD, so 8th century, they first came to Diu from Hormuz, and then they arrived in Sanjan, which is on the coast of Gujarat. There were 18,000 of them, and वहां के जो हिंदू राजा थे, उनका नाम था जाडी राणा. तो इन्होंने कहा कि हमको शरण दीजिए. And when he started hearing about them, he realized, he said, तुम कहते हो you are Parsi, but in the Mahabharata there is a word called Parasika. Parsika is mentioned as the people who lived to the west of the Sindhu river, which means, in other words, we already knew about them. Similarly, for example, हम गऊ को हम अपनी माँ मानते हैं. They also hold the cow very sacred to them. Then, for example, we have deities like Varuna and Mitra in the Rig Veda, but those are equally respected in the Gathas of the Zoroastrians. In Hinduism, we have the Asura and the Deva. In Zoroastrianism, you have Ahura and Daiva. What are these? So the overlaps are tremendous. You can read a couple of lines from the Gathas, and you can read another couple of lines from the Vedas, and they sound exactly identical except for the inflection points. So in other words, the overlaps are there between all faiths, between all religions, between all belief systems. It's only a question of looking. The problem is that everything nowadays is political. So अगर मैं कहूं कि ये 6-pointed star का connection है, तो as a scholar, मेरी पिटाई हो जाएगी. Whereas on the other hand, as a fiction writer, I can afford to bring it as an idea, and I can say, look, this is an idea, and if you think that there is some value in it, then why don't you guys research it more? That's what I try to do.
So absolutely, I think in Magicians of Mazda, the character of Linda is actually Ashwin Sanghi's brain, because she thinks exactly like this, that how to, make Brahma out of Abraham and things like that. So definitely that's why it is so fascinating to, read about all these things.
Also, I think Sir has tried to say that start होता है narrative कि Parsis ईरान से आए हैं कोई foreign nation India में, but by the time the story progressed, we feel that they were coming
already
to
here.
home.
Exactly.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It was a homecoming. घर वापसी थी. It was a घर वापसी.
So, as you had just mentioned that all these other aspects like history, politics, science, they are basically the structure, the beams of, and then you put in the bricks. So, since you were born in the Marwari family, and as you had mentioned today early, that debit, credit, and, bookkeeping was always told to be more important than book reading to you. So, how has this, this aspect, as in the accounts and the debit, credit, how has that aspect influenced your writing, because you have mentioned once in the, Vault of Vishnu, there's a story which says that when a child is born, you put honey on the tongue and glue on the palm so that when you speak sweet and the gold coins can stick in your palms. So what do you have to say about that?
So my upbringing was very much like that, no? मतलब normal जो families होते हैं उनमें अगर बच्चा पैदा होता है तो उसमें मंत्र उच्चारण होता है या नहीं तो कुछ जिसे कहते हैं कुछ या तो बाइबल या कुरान या भगवत गीत या किसी मतलब सेक्रेट टेक्स्ट से कुछ ना कुछ पढ़ा के सुनाते हैं. यहाँ पर मारवाड़ी जो फैमिलीज हैं उनमें तो वो एक कान में डेबिट और दूसरे कान में क्रेडिट सुनाते हैं कि भाई अगर ये दो चीजें मालूम है तो सब कुछ मालूम है, पूरा ब्रह्मांड मालूम है. सो दैट वाज वेरी मच द अपब्रिंगिंग एंड the thought that I had was that if there is a way that I can bring my experiences from there. So if you see Chanakya Chant, it is fundamentally a lot about strategy, even though it is fiction, but it is a lot of strategy. You see the Sialkot saga, it's a lot about theory and all the practicalities of the world of business. So I have attempted to incorporate all of my learnings from all of these things into my books. चाणक्य चांट में एक जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल हमारे एक कैरेक्टर हैं वहां पर पंडित गंगा सागर मिश्रा, तो पंडित गंगा सागर मिश्रा का चाइल्डहुड का वर्णन किया गया है एंड दिखाते हैं कि वो जाते हैं अकाउंट सीखने एज अ यंग मैन एंड द अकाउंटेंट आस्क्स हिम व्हाट इज 2 + 2, so he answers 4. Then after that that fellow says no, I'll give you one more try. So next day again he is asked what is 2 + 2, so he says 4. He says try again. तो ये जो सिलसिला है ये चलता रहता है कई दिनों तक. What is 2 + 2? He says 4. Then finally one fine day after 10-15 days he gets fed up. Again Munimji asks him what is 2 + 2? He says it is whatever you want it to be. And that is the truth of accounting. That is what accounting is. 2 + 2 can become whatever you want it to be, and that's what I even do in the world of fiction, where I try and take things which are so unbelievable and try to make you believe that it is possible. So the art of making that sound plausible is what I do.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to take on from that, Shanu. Since you spoke about Chanakya Chant.
You know, there is, आपने वो सुना होगा ना, स्विट्जरलैंड में वो एक पार्टिकल कोलाइडर है. At CERN. In fact, that is a place where, in fact, right outside CERN, there is this huge statue of Shivji doing the Tandav. And that is where, in fact, the idea for Keepers of the Kalachakra came from, that possibly this could be an atomic representation. But in CERN, what you have is a particle collider which can fuse together particles at very high speed, collide them. So what I like to think I'm doing is that I'm taking two particles and I've put them into that particle collider and I'm bringing them charging at very high speed towards one another. एक पार्टिकल का नाम है हिस्ट्री और दूसरे पार्टिकल का नाम है मिथ. और जब ये फ्यूज टुगेदर हो जाते हैं, then myth plus history is equal to mystery. That's what I do.
Absolutely. So I would just like to take the last one where you spoke about Chanakya Chant, and in that Chanakya is very well known for his Kutniti. However, very less is in general spoken about his good governance.
Yes.
So would you like to add something about that?
So genuinely I believe, Neha, ki we have, you know, what I really feel upset about is that the Chinese did not forget Sun Tzu. They've read Sun Tzu, each one of them understands Sun Tzu. On the other hand, in India, we had something which was far greater than Sun Tzu, which was in the nature of Kautilya. But हम लोग भूल गए हैं a lot of the stuff that was available to us in the Arthashastra. I don't know how many of you have read the Arthashastra. If you haven't read it, more important than reading a book of Ashwin Sanghi is please go and pick up a copy of the Arthashastra. There is a wonderful English translation available in the Penguin Classics of the Arthashastra by Shama Shastri, I think. And that, in my opinion, is almost, you could say, like an ancient report by McKinsey. You know, Chanakya talks about virtually everything. He talks about, for example, what should be the width of a road so that one chariot can overtake another chariot. He talks about what should be the ideal level of taxation. For example, he says that just as one does not pluck fruits which are unripe from a tree, one does not collect more revenue than what is due. Otherwise, you will kill the tree that is giving you the fruit. So I wish sometimes that our taxation authorities would read Chanakya. Sometimes I feel that there are things like, for example, he talks about how frequently should a soldier be paid. Because he says that it's very important that the soldier should be motivated to fight, but he shouldn't be made so comfortable that there is no fire in his belly. So in other words, getting that perfect, this is what we talk about in management theory of incentives and disincentives. He talks about what are the duties of the king. He talks about the time planning of the king, which starts from the midnight hours. I wish that we had people who could work like that. When you read the timetable of a king that is outlined by Chanakya, you wonder as to when does the king sleep. It works out to about 4 hours. So I think that there are so many things that we can pick up from Kautilya. Problem is that we only want to read about his Kutniti. So we only want to hear about Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed. And there is much more to him than that.
So we are going to open the house for audience. Before that, one last thing that we wanted to touch was lots of writers from our times, they say that we do not throw away, when you do the research for the book, there's few things which you keep in the book and then, few you just discard. So for the audience in the Literature Fest, would you want to share some important or interesting piece that you've left from the book, but would you want to incorporate that in the talk?
No, as far as my research is concerned, I end up taking lots of pieces of research from different areas, and I put them into an index system. And just because I have not used it in the book doesn't mean it was not available to me for a future book. So the one important thing, people ask me, is there a formula for writing a bestseller? I say yes, it's a 3-point formula. Number one, write the first paragraph should be like a pothole that you fall in and you can't get out of. That is what the reader should be doing. He should be falling into that story and not getting out of it. The second is that every chapter should end with a hook so that you are propelled to the next chapter. It should not be your conscious decision. It should be happening automatically. But the third is that last paragraph should make your reader look out for your next book. And, as you know, I come from a business background. So for me, every book should not only be written well and researched well, but it must also sell well. From the very first day when I had just started I'd written my first book and I started doing the tours of bookstores. There was a young salesman at my publisher's place. And he said कि अश्विन जी एक चीज याद रखिएगा कि जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. And from that day onwards, whenever I would go to a bookstore, I would pick up my books and bring them in the front because I wanted them to be visible. And in fact, right now, when I was leaving from Bombay to come here, at the airport bookstore, I again called the sales guy and I said, इनको आगे लाओ. So that old habits die hard. I want them to sell well. अब अगर मैं इस सेशन में आपको मेरा वैल्यूबल जो रिसर्च मैंने किया है सालों के लिए वो मैं आपको दे दूंगा तो मेरा धंधा कैसे चलेगा? So sorry, I'm not going to talk about that.
Absolutely. I think we had a great session. It was very interesting. So everyone says that Ashwin Sanghi is the Jeffrey Archer of India. And with that closing note, I would like to open it for the audiences. If you all have any questions for him.
I just want to ask, at what stage of research do you feel it's adequate to write a complete novel about it? At what stage of research do you think that is enough?
I think the question you've asked is at what stage do you stop your research and you start writing? देखिए, actually you have to already, by the time you start your research, the story is already in your head. If you look at most of my books in the Bharat series, मेरे करीब 6 से 9 महीने निकल जाते हैं in terms of research, which is in terms of deciding what do I need to read, who do I need to speak to, which places do I need to visit. All of that is decided and that happens over 9 or 10 months. But the next step which is very critical, which a lot of people don't do, is developing a plot outline. It's so important. Jo bhi, if you are an upcoming writer, then it's very important for you to develop that plot outline. So what I normally do is I write out every chapter in about 100 words. कि ये ऐसे कहानी डेवलप होती है, इसमें ये ट्विस्ट है, इसमें ये इस चैप्टर में ये एंगल आ जाएगा. That's very important because by the time that I sit down to write, वो बच्चों के coloring books होते हैं ना, where the outline is already drawn and the child then only needs to decide कि मैं red crayon काम में लूं या green crayon काम में लूं. So that is what I do. That by the time that I actually start writing, my research is also done and my plotting is done. So research, you have to consciously decide that so much is the amount of time I'm giving to research and then after that, बस. नहीं तो आप वो एक बार वो research के खड्डे में चले गए, तो it is very difficult to get out. But more importantly is that the entire plot outline must be in front of you before you start writing one word. That's all my advice I can give you. You know, our greatest value in Bharat is the, हम सोचते हैं कि हमें, what is it that is keeping us all together and why is India the way it is? I genuinely believe that that common factor is Sanatan Dharma. And the essence of Sanatan Dharma is that it does not matter what your truth is. आपकी सच्चाई और मेरी सच्चाई दोनों coexist कर सकते हैं. तो ये हो सकता है कि आप आस्तिक हो, मैं नास्तिक हूं, ये तांत्रिक है, ये रिचुअलिस्टिक है, ये स्पिरिचुअलिस्टिक है, ये फैंटास्टिक है. It doesn't matter, all of us are welcome. I can worship Shiva, you can worship Shakti, we are both welcome. आप वैष्णवाइट हो, मैं शैवाइट हूं, वी आर बोथ वेलकम. मैं एक पत्थर को देखता हूं, मैं कहता हूं वो शिवलिंग है, आप शिवलिंग को देखते हो, आप कहते हो वो पत्थर है. हम दोनों सही हैं. बोथ आर ट्रूथ्स कैन कोएग्जिस्ट. मैं ईसा मसीह को ले सकता हूं और उसका चरित्र मंदिर पे डाल सकता हूं. मैं बुद्धा को 9th अवतार ऑफ विष्णु बना सकता हूं. It does not matter. That is the essence of, there is one person in this audience who believes that the road to getting God is yantra. There is someone else who says it's tantra. There is a third person who says it's mantra. There is someone else who says that the objective of life is artha, someone else says kama, someone else says moksha. All of us can be true. We can have 300 versions of the Ramayana. एंड जो मैंने अभी समझाया आपको कि 300 वर्जन्स में काफी हद तक अंतर है, पर वी डू नॉट से कि क्योंकि मेरा वर्जन है तो मेरा वर्जन होने के तौर पे आपका वर्जन गलत है. बोथ द वर्जन्स कैन एग्जिस्ट बिकॉज वी आर लिविंग इन अ मल्टीपल यूनिवर्स एंड दैट इज द एसेंस. यू नो, आई वांट टू नरेट वन वेरी स्मॉल स्टोरी टू यू. हैव यू हर्ड ऑफ डैन ब्राउन? Dan Brown, the great thriller writer, was in Bombay, and I was given the job that Neha and Shanu are doing, which is to interview him. Then we went out in the evening, and after dinner, he said, "What is God?" And I wrote on a piece of paper. I said, G is equal to infinity minus K. So he said, "Ab ye samjhao, what is this?" I said, G is what we consider to be God. Infinity is the whole universe, the Brahmand. What is Brahmand? Brahm meaning creation, Anda meaning egg, the egg-shaped universe. And not only today's universe, it is every universe. Whether it has existed in the past, whether it's existing in the present or in the future, and multiple universes. Everything is Brahmand. And K is the amount of human knowledge. What do we know? So what we don't know, we call it God. The Egyptians saw the sun rise in the east and set in the west. They said, this is the sun god. He goes across the sky in his chariot, and at night he gets tired, he goes to sleep, इसलिए अंधेरा पड़ता है. Right? Later on, Galileo, Copernicus, Aryabhat, everyone said, "Arey, nahin, this is a ball of fire and the planets revolve around it." And suddenly Ra had no longer become divine. He was no longer divine because we could explain it. That is the amazing thing about this country, that there are so many things that we don't know, and because we don't know, we find mystery in them. You know, there is one mathematical principle. If you say G is equal to infinity minus K, that is, are you an engineer? Mathematics किया है थोड़ा? तो mathematics में अगर एक तरफ infinity है, then it means that that equation cannot be determined. So you say G is equal to infinity minus K. What does it mean? G cannot be determined. And it's so wonderful. God has created a situation where there are things that we cannot explain. नहीं तो आप सुबह उठ के इसका जाप करोगे. That is the wonder. So let's not worry about the divisions. The divisions we have lived with for thousands of years, and it has not mattered. And it will not matter. हाँ जी, हाँ जी. देखिए, मेरा मानना ये है कि आज के तारीख पे जो विवाद होता है वो मैन्युफैक्चर किया जाता है, वो ऑटोमेटिकली नहीं होता है. आप देखिए, कई ऑथर्स होते हैं या कई ऐसे मूवी मेकर्स होते हैं जो जब उनकी पिक्चर आ रही होती है, जब उनकी किताब निकलने वाली होती है, तो वो किसी को खड़ा करते हैं विवाद करने के लिए, ताकि वो somehow or the other उसका जो सेल है वो बढ़ जाए. तो एक तो ये है. पर दूसरी चीज जरूर एक सोचने वाली चीज है कि माय ओपिनियन इज कि कल्चर ऐसी चीज है जो आप कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं कर सकते हैं. अगर आप देखिए, जो धार्मिक विचारधारा है उसमें सब कुछ अब्सॉर्ब किया जा सकता है, पर जो एब्राहमिक विचारधारा है उसने कई ऐसे कल्चर्स को नष्ट कर दिया. आप देखिए, आज के तारीख पे अगर आप इजिप्ट के सिविलाइजेशन को देखिए तो उनके जो गॉड्स थे, रा, ओसिरिस, आइसिस, सब खत्म हो गए. रोम में जो मित्रेक कल्ट्स थे सब खत्म हो गए. Go back to, let us say, the aboriginal faiths of Australia, they are all finished. Today, Sanatan Dharma is the only pre-Bronze Age culture that has survived. And it has survived against all odds. My view is that it is our duty to preserve that Sanatan Dharma, because it is that Sanatan Dharma which will guarantee pluralism. हम लोग कहते हैं ना, गंगा जमुना तहजीब. तो आप एक चीज सोचिए, हम सोचते हैं कि ये तो हमारे डीएनए में है, गंगा जमुना, पर फिर ये गंगा जमुना तहजीब पाकिस्तान में क्यों नहीं आई, बांग्लादेश में क्यों नहीं आई? जो फैक्टर आपको मिलेगा वो है सनातन धर्म. तो अगर हम सेक्युलरिज्म, प्लुरलिज्म, मल्टीप्लिसिटी ऑफ आइडियाज को प्रिजर्व करना चाहते हैं, then the short formula is Sanatan Dharma.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful session. Thank you very much. Thank you.